So we have one more speaker that's gonna come up. He's John Debacher, and he grew up in a small Illinois village. Went to a small college in Iowa. He worked at a small publishers for a small amount of time, and then decided to become a librarian for a small people and earn a small salary. Once the director here at Monona Public Library, he is now the director of the Public Library Department, a small team in the DPI. Here we give it up for John, everybody.
Some people know better than to give me a microphone. So I'm so grateful to be here with you tonight, and so grateful to hear those stories from the MG21 students, because my story comes from back in those days. So I'm going to have to channel you back a long time ago in a far southwest suburb of Chicago. I kind of envision this like the Talking Heads song, where you see the baseball diamonds and the nice weather down there, and we come down, it's kind of like on a helicopter, and you see the industrial wasteland and the Cicero Avenue, low rent. It was just, Midway Airport wasn't even open up again. And we come about down on Highway, Interstate 55, and then we see greenery and a change in elevation to where the last glacier came to a halt, leaving moisture for those trees and woods, the forest preserves of Cook County, Illinois, and then a place that truly was the Sticks, Palos Park, the Sticks, where there was a village that my parents moved to from their home in Chicago. And my twin sister and I, in the middle of the baby boom, 1956, emerged onto this world. Lived there for 4 years, then moved away twice, only to return in 5th grade. That period of pre-adolescent awkwardness, of I don't know what my gangliness is doing, and I didn't remember, I didn't even know or go to school with any of these students there in this building that still had my dad's name on the nameplate from when he was on the school board there years before. I got cut no slack for that and had to be introduced to my 5th grade class and have everyone look at the big-headed, tall, gangly kid who was new, and I had to go to my desk. So back in those days, we heard one story where, there weren't telephones. There were telephones then, but they were hardwired. So there was really no privacy to calls. And you couldn't even go to a store and buy a different telephone to plug in. You had to buy it through Ma Bell and hope that the cord was long enough so that you could stretch it out into the basement stairs or something like that, and then dial the phone. None of this push buttons or anything like that. The whole number to make your call took forever, and then you had to hope someone was there. There's no answering machine to leave messages. You had to talk to the parents and everything else. Life was hell, and life was boring. There were no great array of television programs on cable TV, no local broadcasting. You had whatever you could pick up through some antenna on the roof if it was aimed in the right direction. Fortunately, we had channels from Chicago, the VH channel, the very high frequency channels 2 through 13. And then when we moved back there, the UHF channels came back, ultra high frequency. But the dials, you had 2 dials on your TV, and the UHF, you had to do this kind of tuning in to get it in just right. and hope that something was on that you could watch. So by the time that I got into late middle school, I had never been let out after dinner. That was just my mom's policy. You did homework. She protected us from I don't know what, because really there were so many of us. They were doing everything they could to thin out our populations. You know, they had the jungle gyms and the big slides where you could catch your sweatshirt string on and choke to death on your way down. Everything was planted in asphalt. You know, there was no compressible material under it. So, just giving you the context. So, I don't know, sometime around 12 years old, I tried once again to say, hey, my friends are going to be over at Arlie's house. Can I, go out and spend some time with them? And my mom, in a moment of weakness, said yes. And I capitalized on that moment to go forth into the streets of Palos Park. Palos Park had half-acre minimum lots and, septic and wells, and, the streets wound around, the gravel streets all over. So we just walk to friends' houses and see if anything was going on. And usually there wasn't. Maybe we'd get a cookie, and then we'd walk to somebody else's house, hoping that something might be going on. Maybe see if something's on TV. Seen it. It was reruns time. So we'd go out onto the gravel roads again, and some of the roads were laid out in more of a grid and were paved. There was, and I had to learn, not having been out with friends a lot as a kid. I had a twin sister, so, there's only this basis of comparison with what's expected of her and what's expected of me. Everything else I had to pick up through observation. My observations were with young men, with boys. There were basically, just a few things they really liked to do. They liked anything that came out of your body. Girls, on the other hand, and I don't mean to be sexist or anything, but this was based on observation back then in the 1960s, they were more concerned with things you put on your body, but boys, it was whatever came out of your body. I remember your uncle that, did the, hey, Johnny, come here, pull my finger. So we'd work through that, and then, so they like to, drop things from high places, light things on fire, and pee on things. So you could combine those sometimes too. You could light things on fire and pee on them. Or, I don't know, light things on fire and drop them off of high places. One of the places we played was this, abandoned bridge over railroad tracks that had become perceived too dangerous for cars, but not for children. So they'd boarded it off, and not far from my house, and we'd go, we'd play variations of war. But we learned that when the trains would come, you could crawl over down onto the abutments that held it up. And you had a little ledge that you could sit on while the train was coming. Running underneath you. And the suction from that train was just awesome. So then we learned we could drop stuff off onto the trains too. And if you were really careful, if you timed it right, because this was science, this was learning, there was a fan on the diesel engine with a metal cage over it. You'd get a big rock and you'd try to time it to push the rock onto the metal cage, down onto the fan, and then you'd hear as the Doppler effect of the sound took into the distance. All right, I know I'm running way past my 3-minute time limit, but that'll teach Teddy for having me come to do storytelling. But I remember going out in the evening, all of that walking with boredom, we found the most exciting thing to do. We'd started listening to the radio, to blues music. It was awesome. And also WXRT in Chicago, which still plays. You got to have a whole combination of music. But one of the performers, kind of in that rock blues juncture, was T-Bone Walker. So we learned walking on those paved streets, that there were street lights every so often. And you'd walk into the darkness and then into the street light, and then another maybe quarter mile of darkness, and then you'd get this dome of light from the street light, and we like to pee. So if we started under that street light and then walking carefully, spread-legged, away from the street light as far as we'd been able to contain ourselves, and I've had a lot of coffee tonight, so don't make me try to replicate this here. We could lay down this waving path and turn back, and in the mirror, in that street light, it was this wonderful snake path. And the next morning on the bus, we could point out the wonder of our work. We were such proud pre-teenagers back in that day. So that's my path in my youth, and I thank you very much tonight.
Give it up for John, everybody. That's in that moment there, I kind of had a reminiscent moment of the future when I'm John's age, and I'm going to be doing a thing like this, and I'm going to be talking about when TV turned off. You guys remember that, when TV just went static at the end of the night? You know what I mean? And like before the internet, like you had to have dial-up. Like it took all the phone lines. You couldn't just have. It was crazy.